Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Ready, Aim, Retire, the show that focuses on you, helping you through retirement, building a legacy, wealth transfer, and anything that's going to help you make your picture full. I'm here today. I'm Rob Kirvan. I am here today, as always, with Tony Shore. Tony, how we doing today?
Doing great, Rob. Thanks for having me on the show once again. I've had an incredible week. It's been really busy. I'm dealing with both of my parents are now in long-term care.
Oh,
And so I'm having to all of a sudden I'm instant landlord because my dad rents out the two houses on the farm place.
oh,
So my phone's been lighting up like with crazy requests from renters. I'm going to save some of these and write a book or work up a
should.
comedy routine. I got one yesterday. Honestly, true story. I see the 507 area code coming in, and I know it's my parents' farm
Just
down
get
in
a chill
southern
up your back
Minnesota.
a little bit. You're like, oh,
Yeah, I do.
yeah.
And I look, is it okay if we do a closet makeover? That's all it said. And I don't know what.
What does that even mean?
No, I was hoping you or some of our listeners could tell me what
Like,
the renters
like,
mean by that. And I'm like, is it
put
okay if we
shelving
do
in?
a closet? Yeah, I guess just put shelves in. I'm
Mm,
like, if it's improving it, you're paying for it and doing it yourself, go for it. That's what
That's good
that
advice.
was my response.
Wow, closet
I'm like,
makeover.
sure.
Yeah.
So I've been busy, just to put it
Wow, I
mildly.
would
How
say,
about
yeah.
you? I know you've been busy too, but little more
You know,
fun meeting with clients,
meeting with
things like that.
clients this week, was the women's, golf open in Illinois.
Oh, wow.
So,
Was your daughter involved in that?
she was. So she was, so I caddied, Tony, and it was hot.
Did
It
you
was hot.
caddy for your daughter and
Yep,
it was hot?
super hot. And you know what? You could have taken a cart. Some of the girls took carts and some of
Yeah,
whoever was caddying.
sure.
I just kind of refuse to do that. Like I don't care how hot it is. Like you're supposed to walk that course. Like if I'm playing socially, I've never walked in my life. But like as a caddy with her, so we played. She played well. I think overall there was 92 golfers. She was 25th. Had a kind of a rough back nine on the second day, but
Oh,
it was in the hunt there. Through 27 holes. But
oh,
yeah,
wow.
good talent up from all over the country coming.
Wow. 27 holes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she played 36, but
Yeah, right.
27 good ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she was
That's
3
good.
over through 27. So she
Yeah, because
was
I'm lucky if I have one good one.
right. Right. Me too. Me too.
Right.
Not far off that. So that was
Oh,
fun.
you're a pretty good golfer. Probably your daughter's better than you are you saying?
She's a lot better. Like I think like for the golfers out there, I think she's a 1.3 handicap, which
Oh,
basically
wow.
we're in a tournament. We're in a tournament next week. It's called the Invitational, where you can bring a guest, and I bring Emma, just to kind of hopefully rocket me up the leaderboard.
Right.
And I think on like they sent out the handicaps yesterday. I think for the entire tournament, which there's got to be, I don't know, 70 or 80 guys. She'll probably be like the only girl in the tournament. But I think she's third lowest in the entire thing.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
she'll
That's
lead.
impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, your daughter is impressive, and that's what she does. She's a golfer. She's golfing at the University of Nebraska, right?
Yeah, at Omaha. Yeah,
In
exactly.
Omaha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yep.
very cool. Well,
Yep.
I didn't realize you caddied these tournaments with her. I guess maybe you've mentioned that, but
Yeah.
you
The
look
big
like
ones
you had no weight to lose, but you do look about 20 pounds lighter.
Right.
After
I think the other day I lost. I think it was 91 when we finished. It was a scorcher. So there's
Yikes. And
there's
no
no
cart. You're the one that refused the cart? Because I was
yeah,
gonna say, why
yeah,
would you'd
yeah.
have to be fill in the blank to refuse a
I
cart
know.
on a day?
No, I'm just not about it. I think it's you got to walk that thing. I even asked her. She's like, "No, we got to walk." So I
Wow.
think I brought her
Yeah.
up right.
I don't know if you could tell by looking at me, but I would have accepted the cart. I
Right.
would have not walked. I mean,
Most
Rob,
will.
people look at me and they say, "Tony, how do you do it?" And I say two words: diet and exercise.
That's it.
And then everyone laughs when I say that. But the way I look at it, if I make enough trips from my table to the pizza buffet and back,
Yeah.
that's a lot of exercise. I
Step.
mean,
count the steps.
Yeah,
You know,
count the
that's what everybody does
count
now.
the
Count the steps.
steps, make sure the plate's nice and heavy, count
Yeah.
the steps, go
Maybe take
back
a few less
often.
slices so you have more steps. You know, it's just all
Right.
strategy in that
Yeah,
environment.
yeah, I'll
Yeah.
sit in the back corner, sure. All right. Well, hey, we have we're joking around, but we do have a serious topic, and
We do.
my parents are getting up there, and they're both now in long-term care, and a lot of people don't like to think or talk about these things.
They don't. And you know what? I'll tell you, over the past 6 months, actually the past year, we've had 3 or 4 good clients, pass on,
That's
and then
tough.
it is, and especially when they've been with me for so long, like what ends up happening is they become friends. We do a lot of social events, and so they're friends. Like they really are. And the one that recently passed last week, Stu, he was basically like a grandfather to Emma. Has known Emma since she's a little kid. He's a golfer, all into the golf. So he follows the tournaments. I get texts at tournaments where he's like, "Wait, what happened on 5?" Like I'll get texts like that, like in-game texts. So so it's tough, and when that happens, depending on their organizational level, there's a lot of things to do. And what I did is I just compiled a quick list of 15, 16 items that you kind of have to do. Some of them a little bit more involved than others. And I thought today I'd share, if a loved one passes, here's kind of what you got to do, and just kind of go through the list and relate it to what's going on. All right, let's go. Number 1, Tony. The
Yeah,
first
it sounds good. I think it's important that we
It
talk
is.
about this and that people understand that they need to be looking at this and thinking about it.
The other thing is if you're listening out there, if you're a client of mine, you have access to the client vault, the generational vault. As we go through this list, I'll refer to it a few times, but that helps things keep very tight, very organized. And as you go down that road, you'd be surprised how unorganized things can get.
Yeah.
So the first thing you have to do, if your loved one was living alone, you have to secure their home, secure their vehicle. If there's any valuables in the home, lock them up. It sounds basic,
Right.
but those are easy things not to pay attention to if the car's locked, and
Right.
you go in there, get the mail, clean out the refrigerator, and have a neighbor keep an eye on the home. So if they're living alone, it's just those little simple things that, you're in a state at that point where it's hard to think, rationally or logically. You're going
Right.
through something heavy. So this list will hopefully help you out. And if you want to copy the list, give us a call at 630-780-1099. We'd be happy to email you out a list, that kind of covers this stuff. The next thing you want to do is forward the mail. Again, this is if someone's living alone. If it's a spouse, you obviously don't have to do the first 2 steps, but go to the post office and put a forwarding order to yourself or whoever's managing their affairs. You may be helping out, but you may not be the person, totally managing the affairs. You may be a friend or, a sibling or something like that.
Yeah, to the executor. Usually the executor of the estate would want to get the mail probably.
Exactly. Like whoever's, the executor, if it's a will, the agent that's handling that. You don't want the mail piling up on someone's doorstep, Tony. Much like when you go away. When you go away, ask a neighbor, can you grab the mail? So in this case, we're going to forward the mail to exactly what Tony said, the executor or whoever's handling the estate, because they're going to need everything coming in, to go through. Death certificates. People always ask me, do I need a copy of the death certificate? You need probably 10. There's many different agencies and accounts and things. A minimum 10. If you're there, it doesn't hurt to get more. You get 15 of them. It's more of a pain to go back and to get some if you run out. And you'll need these to transfer assets from investment accounts, file insurance claims. You got to register the death with the government agencies. You'll need copies of that. Going to a bank, which we'll talk about later, you're going to need a copy of the death certificate, to show all of these things. So, and the good thing is most funeral homes, Tony, will work with you and assist you on getting these. So it's not like, okay, now how do I find one? They will assist you and they'll get them. You'll just let them know how many copies do you want. But I always see people with less than more. You're
Yeah.
always better to get more. Like when I say 10, get 15, it doesn't hurt depending on what assets that individual had, kind of where they're spread out. You're going to need them. If they had
I saw
multiple.
that with my grandfather,
Yeah.
Rob, because and you're shocked at what you need them for. Almost everything. If you want to get something done and it has any tie to any value, property, vehicles, insurance, financial accounts, like you said, and they never have enough. And I will tell you, people think, oh, I'll just take a picture of it with my phone and send it or photocopy it. Nope. You
No,
have to have an original death certificate.
you
So you
do.
need 10 original death certificates. The
And that's a
actual,
great point. That's a great
yeah,
point. Like you cannot, no one will accept a copy of a death certificate.
no,
So even a bank, even as simple as a bank account, and even if you've walked in there, yourself with them for 20 years, they still need it. That's something
yeah.
they have. So that's a great point.
If your best friend is the bank president, it ain't going to happen,
They
right? You
still
got
can't
to
do it.
have a copy of the death certificate.
Now,
Yeah.
20 years ago, probably, Tony, like
Yeah.
kind of a little more loosey goosey, but nowadays, not a chance.
No.
The next thing you have to do is find the will or the trust. People usually will name, just as Tony said earlier, an executor to their estate or a personal agent. Um, they need to be involved in every step moving forward. So you may be a sibling, and it could be like your mother or father that passed away, but you may not be the executor. And you may be helping out with these first few steps and take. But there's I had in yesterday, Tony, two sisters, and they had a brother. The brother wasn't at the meeting, but their mother had passed, who was a long-term client of mine. And one's the executor, one is not the executor, and so we got to direct things towards the executor because they have to settle this thing, and it's their responsibility to make sure everything kind of goes the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Contact an attorney to help you with the probate process if it's required. And sometimes probate is required, sometimes it's not required. It depends on how your estate. We've done several shows on here of setting up a trust and how that kind of helps you avoid probate. We did a great show with Jay Guerin that where do my assets go when I pass. If you want a refresher, go back on YouTube, listen to that one, because that will give you a good idea of, are you going to be leaving your loved ones with a probate issue or not, depending on your situation. But you want to contact an attorney if that's necessary. Contact your CPA. You're going to need to file a final tax return for the deceased on their behalf. Like not right away, but this will need to be done. So the year following, and sometimes we have to file two of them, depending on when assets come in, when they pass. So it's until everything is settled, you have to continually file a tax return. So contact your CPA and make sure that they're in the loop, that mom or dad has passed, or your spouse, or whoever that may be.
Yeah.
And again, I'm giving you a full list, Tony. Everyone's situation is different. Spouses is different than a child's, and so on and so forth. But this is a good list to kind of get your handle around. Wow, I didn't know that much was needed. I guess.
Well, and even especially for the parents or people who are getting older, make sure you communicate to your children or the executor. Make sure they're all in the loop. Make sure there are no things that could cause family disharmony after you're gone. I think a lot of the responsibility does lie on the people while you're alive and of good mental health. Get this stuff done and out of the way and communicate with your kids. People don't like to talk about it, but if you put it off, I've seen what happens. I mean, my dad's family was so close and tight knit, great people, and now two of them aren't speaking to each other
As a
after
result of
my grandfather dying, because he only communicated to one person, the executor, one of the four children,
right.
and the others didn't know what was going on. There was some confusion. The will was confusing. There wasn't a trust,
Yeah.
so.
And Tony, that's a really, really good point. Is people, they want to kick that can down the road. They feel like, if I get a trust in order, I'm gonna die. Like that's the mentality. But you don't want, you're up there looking down, hopefully not looking up, but looking down.
Right.
And your family's at the kitchen table saying, geez, Rob really made a mess of this. I can't believe how disorganized it is. I can't believe this, or I never knew you were the executor. And all of these things are solvable while you're alive. And they all have like, for example, my mother passed, 4 or 5 years ago. I knew that I wasn't the executor because she's up in Canada and I'm down here. It makes zero sense, even though this is what I do for a living, right? She had let my brother know that he was the executor. She didn't let my sister know. My sister thought she was the executor. So exactly what you
Oh,
just said literally happened in our family. Luckily it didn't cause a lot of disharmony, but it very initial disharmony, 100%, and she never communicated to that. And the same token, she never communicated to us whatsoever what she had or where it was. She was very, and people are like that, but
yeah, they
but
are.
you got to do, that's why we provide our clients with the generational vault, that you can keep it tight to your chest, but if it's organized in our system, doesn't matter. There's lots of assets we don't manage. We manage, the investment side of it. But if those are all organized in there, man, does that ever make a job for an executor a heck of a lot easier? And it's just more transparent because you're not. I don't know to this day, Tony, if we ever found all my mom's stuff. Like I literally don't. Like there was boxes of this, but like we had literally no clue. And she wasn't like a super wealthy woman by any stretch of the imagination. But your stuff is your stuff. I don't
Yep.
care how big the estate is. It's your stuff, and you want it to go to where you want it to go. So very, very good point. Just get it out in the open. And like Tony said, that this harmony will happen if it's not. And people have to understand why you chose A over B. And you chose them for a reason. And once they hear that reason, probably makes sense. Like it totally made sense to me. In my personal situation, and it would make sense to them. And if they have a problem with it, air it out before it's too late. The next thing you have to do, Tony, is you have to make an inventory. As I'm talking about the generational vault, you got to make an inventory of all your assets. So when you go in and you got to find out what mom had or dad had or whoever, or your uncle or aunt, start making an inventory of this is the stuff that they have. You'll be able to, you have to do some sleuthing if it's not organized, but that's going to take some time. You got to track down additional assets. That could be all over the place. There's one-offs here. There's a CD sitting over here. There's a side investment in a business over here. There could be multiple different things. And if it's not organized, now you're on the tracking team to kind of find that. Again, having something written down. If you're not a client of ours, get something written down somewhere. Put that in a desk drawer. Put it somewhere where it's easily findable. And I understand, folks, that people like to keep their finances close to their chest. That's understandable. No one ever talks about, I got this here and that here, especially parents. Both my parents have passed, and I didn't have one sniff of what either of them ever had. Like never, never in my life that I ever know. But and it wasn't really organized. At the end of the day, like I don't, they were old school and they just kind of, kept it where it was. But the next thing you have to do, you made the inventory of the assets. You have to make a list of the bills. And again, yesterday, the clients that we're in, or the beneficiaries, well, we don't have to pay those bills. I'm like, yeah, you do. You have to. The estate has to pay the outstanding debts. So if there's a credit card bill for $1,000, or there's this outstanding or that outstanding, that's the responsibility of the estate to settle it. So you have to take, the assets that come in, take the cash flow, pay off the bills that are outstanding. And if you're the executor, that's your responsibility. And I would also add, you should open up a separate bank account to facilitate all this. So you can facilitate. If it's a trust, you open a trust account, so the money is coming in, and then you can track it going out. Because on the other side, Tony, I've had clients, this hasn't happened to me personally, but I've had clients settling estates for parents. And just like you said, with people not talking, that happens because they think that the executor is taking the money. They really, people believe that, because the only thing that separates families is money. At the end of the day, and it happens, unfortunately, in our offices too often than I can name. But if you have a separate account where you can track it coming in, make yourself a little spreadsheet, so you can show it to your siblings or whoever's kind of on that list, to say, this is what came in. These are the bills I paid. The other side note, if you're the executor settling this, keep a track of your time. the time it takes you to track stuff down, to go to banks, to go here, to go there, because you can get reimbursed by the estate for that time. And generally speaking, no one's trying to get rich off of the time that they're doing, but it is your time, so you put a fair number on it. You talk to your siblings or whoever else is a beneficiary and say, listen, I've spent 150 hours doing this, and you're going to spend time, folks. Like this is not something that happens quickly. And you're going to do a lot of running around, a lot of phone calls, and a lot of things like that. So track your time and get reimbursed by the estate for that time, and make sure it's cool with everybody. But that you are 100% entitled to do that, which people don't know.
Yeah, that's really good. These are great points, and I hope people are taking notes. But they don't have to be.
No.
You said they can get a copy of the list. All they have to do is give you a call.
Yeah, just give us a call. Go to 630-780-1099, and we'll give you a copy of this list. And the other thing, while we're giving the number out, Tony, go to our website, apadvisorsgroup.com. Just updated it. All brand new. We moved into our new space 7 months ago now. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, it does.
But we had to redo our whole website because we're in a new location. We brought camera crews in. It's done up perfectly. Lots of videos, and definitely things on what we're talking about are on that website. I have different videos on that. You can have a link right to the YouTube if you don't subscribe, but I would subscribe because, you'll be able to see what's coming out. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. All you do is you get notified first, so it's kind of a good thing. But definitely give us a call. The next thing you have to do, Social Security, you must notify them of death. And this is, I'm going to tell you, when my mom passed, she had worked in Canada and in the US, so she was getting Social Security. And when she passed, I don't know if we were doing other things, but I never notified Social Security for like a month. Mm-hmm. And I guess another check went in her bank account. So we had to pay that check back. So if you don't notify them and they pay you and you think, oh, great, we're still getting paid, we'll notify them a little later. They will request, what do you think, Tony? The death certificate, of course. They're going to know exactly when mom or dad or your uncle or aunt passed, and they're going to say,
you're not going to pull one over on the Social Security Administration.
You are not. And you're going to have to pay all of those back. Yeah. And the other thing you want to call them, if you're a spouse, you want to call them, notify them. Again, you're going to have to provide the death certificate. And at that moment in time, they're going to give you the higher of the two Social Security benefits if you're currently married and your spouse passed. And a lot of people don't know that. You actually lose one of your Social Security benefits. So that's also a planning point, something to keep in mind when you're sitting down, making sure that, hey, what if that happens, what happens to me? Am I still going to be, A-okay? The other thing holds true for if your spouse was getting a pension. The pension, depending on how they elected it, could be 100% going to you. That payment will continue. Could be 50%, could be 75%, it could be zero. So you want to call the pension company and say, okay, what, Rob has passed. Now what do we do? What does that look like for me? Those two are very, very important because that is part of your foundation of income that you live on monthly, as a retiree. Bank accounts and financial institutions. So if you're a joint owner of an account, if it's a spouse, most banks will have a right to survivorship, which means you have full access to the funds. But what if it was a second marriage? Or what if we just never had a joint account? We always had separate accounts. If it's not a joint account, you want to make sure, and again, like Tony said earlier, it's easier to do this stuff now, make sure that you go to the bank and make sure there's a transfer on death on record. Sometimes they'll refer to it as a payable on death, a POD, and make sure you put your beneficiary on there and make sure that, even if it's your spouse and you just happen to have a separate account, or you might have a joint account and then you each have a separate account, depending on kind of how you structure your home, make sure that they're on there. And the other thing to make sure, and we've ran into this a few times, Tony, is the 401k accounts. So when we manage accounts, you can't get out of our office, Tony, unless there's beneficiaries on the account. And there has to be primary and contingent. And you can always change those, folks. Things happen, family dynamics or whatnot. But we have so many that had zero beneficiaries on their 401k.
That's crazy.
Like they just opened the 401k and it might have been 20 years ago. And They just did it, didn't think about it, said, I'll get to that later. And next thing you know, or they have, the one of their kids on it, but they don't have the other two because they weren't born at the time and they, worked for the same company forever. It's an old 401k that's been sitting somewhere. You've had multiple jobs after, and you're saying you always get to it. Check your 401ks. Again, make sure you have beneficiaries on them because that then becomes just another hassle. Like they'll get the money eventually, but it's a hassle. Having a beneficiary, especially on a beneficiary driven account like a 401k, it's kind of a must have. Your IRAs and brokerage accounts. Contact your financial advisor, schedule a meeting to go through the accounts, the beneficiaries, etc. They'll prepare the paperwork. If it's a spouse, it has to be changed into your name, so it becomes a spousal IRA. If you're a child of somebody that passed, it becomes a beneficiary IRA. So, but new paperwork, your new accounts have to be set up before it transfers in. So contact them. They'll prepare everything. Like I said, we've been through this a lot, and we know what has to be done, but definitely a call that has to be made. Even if it's a joint brokerage account, there's still paperwork that has to be signed, so you become the sole owner of that brokerage account once if your spouse had passed. So definitely something, a big planning point there. Get a hold of them, and hopefully, as you're listening out there, folks, you're taking notes, and if not, you're going to call to get the list, but a lot of these things can be done as you sit here listening to my show. Get them done now. So they're not looking down at the kitchen table saying, geez, Rob left us just a terrible mess to clean up.
Yeah.
A couple other ones, Tony, and these ones people don't know about either is the other ones seem big, that these make sense, but canceling the driver's license of the deceased, closing the credit card accounts. Make sure you close all the credit card accounts, close the email accounts, credit agencies, send a copy of the death certificate to all three major credit agencies. You don't want somebody doing, an identity theft on your loved one that has passed, so you send those and nothing can ever be opened in that name again. Nothing can be done in that name again. A lot of people never do that, and then next thing you know, they're, and they may not even know that identity isn't stolen because they would pay no attention to it, but they're using, that information. You don't want that. And the last one I'll mention is you want to delete or memorialize social media accounts. So a lot of people, when someone passes, they had a Facebook, so they'll put something nice up on the Facebook saying, whoever, unfortunately they passed away after a battle with X, Y, or Z, or this is what happened. So their friends can be able to see that, and then, after a while, you don't keep it up forever because you don't want people going in there. And that's something that you should look at deleting, or if you want to keep it, for a period of time, keep it for a period of time. But again, those are kind of little check marks. And there's more than this, Tony. But we only have like a 25 minute show. So we don't want to,
Right.
We don't want to take up, and people's eyes are glossing over, ears are glossing over right now because I was like a fire hose. But this is an important list. So I do encourage people to give us a call, get the list. If you come in, let Natalie know, when you're coming in that, hey, can Rob give me a copy of that list? Because I think it's a real important one. And it just gives you kind of like a little starter pack, really. There's a lot going on when someone passes. This is not by far the complete list of everything. There's a lot going on, and this hopefully will give you an idea of, oh, I never thought of that, and hopefully there's a couple in there that you're like, oh, I never even thought about doing that.
Yeah. Well, it is a great list, and there's always more, but that's really some of the key points you went over. And again, if our listeners want to get a copy of that list or set up a consultation, you need a financial professional to work with. So if something does happen, your family knows where to go and all your affairs are in order. That number is 630-780-1099 or 630-780-1099. And it's Advisors Group, apadvisorsgroup.com. The web address is apadvisorsgroup.com. Rob, great show today.
Little somber one, Tony, but it needed to be said.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it does. It does. We need to get this stuff planned. Great show. And we'll be back next week with another great show. Thank you, Rob. Listeners, that does it for today's episode of Ready, Aim, Retire with our host, Rob Kirvan.